Well, it's good to see you back this evening. It's nice to start back with our evening worship. I thought of a simple little lesson for us to go over tonight, something that sometimes we just don't think about. And that I entitled it, Ways to Love. You know, there's all kinds of ways that we can love one another, and we can demonstrate that in different ways. You know, the world has this idea of what love ought to be. And, you know, we have flower shops, and we have candy stores, and we have music grams and all kinds of things. We've got billboards, people putting up signs on the billboard, announcements on the radio, and all kinds of variety of ways that we have to show one another that we love each other. But are there some better ways than that? Are there some other things that we can do to demonstrate our love for one another? And more importantly, what if we applied that to the Christian and how the Christian lives? Turn with me, if you will, to John chapter 15 and verse 12. John chapter 15 and verse 12 and 13. This is my commandment, the Lord says, that you love one another as I loved you. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. So we know what the paradigm is. We know what we are to match and try to be equal to, and that is the love that Christ had for us. So when you put that into the equation, it opens up a whole new venue of categories, doesn't it, of how we can express our love and show our love for one another. And we could go on for days talking about different ways that we are to love one another and how that works. Matter of fact, our love for one another is one of the keystone things that the world needs to see in us. For what the Lord tells us, they will know you are mine, you are my children, by the way that you love one another. That's what the world is supposed to see in us. But is it only when we're at church? Is it only when we represent the church? Or maybe it has something to do with the way that we live our lives and treat our families and our loved ones. Treat each other on the street. Things like this. That is important, isn't it? Look at Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 2. Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 2. And walk in love. Live in love. Your whole life is to be an expression of love. Walk in love as Christ also hath loved us, and hath given himself for us an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet-smelling savor. Our life, then, is to be expressed as an expression of love. That's how we are to live, how we are to conduct ourselves. Matter of fact, Paul in Romans tells us to put on Christ. Here we're basically being told the same thing, to walk in love. When the world looks at us, they need to see Christ. They need to see Christ living in me. They need to see my thoughts, my feelings, my expressions, my thoughts. All that encompasses who I am needs to be expressed as Christ would express it, including my love. My love for my fellow man, my love for my wife, my love for my children, my brothers and sisters in Christ. Whatever the category might be, that love needs to be one that Christ himself would be expressing. That's how important love is in our life. But how can we show that love? What are some ways? You know, we can't rely on the internet and TV or billboards to express our love. We need to be expressing it in different ways. Well, I've got 10 different ways that we can show our love here for one another, all Bible-based, all based in how we are to conduct ourselves as children of God. Ways that we can express our love for each other. Number 1, listen without interrupting. That's a hard one. That's a hard one. Not only do we interrupt each other and we're rude about it sometimes, we don't let somebody finish a sentence, but if it's our loved one, our spouse, sometimes we know them so well, we know what they're thinking before they think it, and we interrupt them before they even get the thought out. and that doesn't express love. It doesn't express consideration. Listen to what Proverbs 18 verse 13 says. He that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto him. You're talking about something before you even hear it. You are making an assumption that what that person is fixing to say is something you already know. You don't need to hear it again. Or their thoughts or their feelings are insignificant. It doesn't matter in relationship to the category that we're talking about here, or the circumstances. Your thoughts and feelings, that don't really matter. This is what we need to focus on. That's what we're saying to people, and that's not being considered. We need to listen. One of the greatest tools we can have, we can use, is the ability to listen. Listen, listen, listen. Especially when it comes to our loved ones. Listen to what they have to say. Number 2, speak without accusing. Sometimes our speech betrays our thoughts. We not say it outright, but the way we say something often carries a connotative meaning to it, doesn't it? Sometimes we can speak accusatory, and that's the way it's taken, and that's not the way it should be taken. We need to be careful how we speak. Look at James 1:19. James 1:19. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. Notice he says slow to speak. That means I'm thinking about what I'm going to say before I say it. We need to do that. That is so difficult for so many to deal with. They don't know how to stop for a minute and think. I don't know how many times I've had to get on the kids at school and tell them, I know what they're thinking, I know what they're trying to do, but it didn't come out that way when they said it. So it's a perfect opportunity to teach them about thinking about what you're saying before you say it. How many brethren have been hurt because something was said before it was thought through? The consequences of the words. Our words are powerful. Our words are to be edifying and build one another up, because our words can tear down faster than they can build up. What good does it do to hurt someone? What good does it do to accuse someone of something? What good does it do to create a feeling of unimportance in someone? What good does it do? Everyone is important in some way, even if it's just being here and encouraging one another. Everyone has a part in the body of Christ. Everyone worships God. Everyone offers spiritual sacrifices. Everyone prays for one another. Everyone is important. And no one should ever be made to think that they're not important. And how we speak to them and about them is very important. Number 3, give without sparing. Talking to some people that grew up during the Depression years, this is a hard one, because they grew up without anything. And they protect what they've got. They take care of it. They'll take that baling wire and undo it from whatever it's been done, and they're going to wrap it up, and they're going to put it on a nail in the barn, because that baling wire is going to come in handy. We're going to use it to patch the old tractor up. We're going to use it to cinch the engine into the old car. I've seen that done. We're going to take care of things. So they have come up, or been raised up in an atmosphere of everything has value and everything is important. So to get them to give, not that they don't want to give, but they're careful how they give, because they don't want to run out of what they don't. They're afraid of running out of something and not having anything. They've spent years without. I've seen people born and raised in this time to go to visit them and knock on their door and go visit with them and find shoes all over the bedroom floor. Shoes everywhere. Well, we get to talking about the shoes, and oh, I had a pair like that. We get to talking, we find out they grew up without shoes. They never had any shoes. So every time they found a chance at a garage sale or wherever to get some shoes, they wanted a pair of shoes because they grew up without shoes. See, so we need to be careful what we say. We need to be careful how we address a situation. But we need to be able to give as well. Look at Proverbs 21, verse 26. Proverbs 21, verse 26. He coveteth greedily all the day long, but the righteous giveth and spareth not. The righteous give. Why? Because they know where it comes from. You see, it's a mindset. It's a retraining of the mind, relearning how to think. Yeah, you may have grown up without shoes. You may have grown up hungry sometimes. You may have missed a meal here or there, but God is on your side, and God will not let you go without what you need. You need to learn to trust in Him. It's a matter of trust. And that trust is not only is it earned, but it grows. So as we deal with one another, let us love one another and teach one another how to be giving in kindness and love and time. See, it doesn't matter if it's a material object. Sometimes it's your time that you give. We're more greedy with our time than we are with anything else. We don't want to give God 35 minutes on a Sunday morning. We don't want to give Him an hour. Oh, let's don't do 2 hours. Let's do it. Don't do an hour in the evening on Sunday, and let's don't do an hour on Wednesday. 3.5 hours out of the whole week. Let's don't do that because I'm greedy with my time. I'd rather spend my time sitting in my lounge chair at home watching TV and playing on my phone and playing a game on my phone, getting on Facebook or the internet or talking to somebody around the world on the chat somehow, some way. Give that my time versus giving it to God. See, we can be greedy with our time as well. You know, God gave you the ability to wake up this morning. He gave you your breath. He gave you your ability to see, to hear. All the things that we've grown accustomed to each and every day. God made that happen. And we can't see fit to give God just a little bit of our time. We can't see fit to give Him a prayer time where we set aside time apart just for Him, between ourselves and Him, to pray and let Him know the matters of our heart. No, we've got to get on that phone. That's a terrible thing. And if you watch in the world around you, everywhere you go, people's nose is in that phone. Sitting at the table in a restaurant, kids are on the phone. Sitting in the pews at church, look down the pews in the church, you'll find kids on phones and tablets rather than listening to the preacher. What is that teaching them? You'll find people on their phones. And I've got a Bible app. Well, maybe a few do that, but not all of them. The temptation is too strong. We need to learn to not be greedy, whether it's with our material possessions that God will replace. What did the Lord say to the rich man? Give all that thou hast and come follow me, and thou shalt have greater in heaven. What did He tell him? What was He teaching us? Don't worry about anything. Give, and God will replenish. Number 4, we need to pray without ceasing. This one is a hard one. This one is a hard one. Pray without ceasing. Look in Colossians 1, verse 9. We remember Thessalonians, don't we? 5:17, pray without ceasing. But we need to pray without ceasing in other ways as well. Look in Colossians 1, verse 9. For this cause we also, since the day we heard it, do not cease to pray for you. Are you listening? We do not cease to pray for you, and to desire that you might be filled with the knowledge of His will and all wisdom and spiritual understanding. How often do we pray for our neighbors? How often do we pray for our leaders of our country? How often do we pray for the children that are going to our schools? We might pray once a week, or when we think about it. What did the Lord say? Pray without ceasing. Don't cease to mention in your prayers those that are in need, no matter who they are. Pray for the lost. Pray for the children. Pray for the sick. Pray for this country. Pray for those that are around the world that are seeking the truth, that are having greater struggles than you and I have ever imagined to hear the gospel. Pray for the young man that I just read about on the church website. He got up to go to a meeting. He had to get up early in the morning before daybreak and get dressed. And he had to walk for hours and hours just to get to the meeting place. And then they stayed there all day long and into the evening. I remember when I was in Haiti, and I taught the Bible in Haiti, and we taught the Bible study method to the young men who were wanting to be preachers. We taught them how to study the Bible. I had young men in that class with me that had gotten up 2 days before and walked for 2 days to sit in that class. They had nowhere to stay, no food or anything. They stayed in the classroom. When I went and left and went back to the motel that we had reserved, those men stayed in that camp where they were and slept on the floor till I got there the next day. Pray for people who are desiring to hear the truth, who want to learn, who want to be Christians. We should never stop praying. We should never cease to pray for those in need, no matter what that need might be. What about our children, as I mentioned? They're growing up in a world full of lasciviousness. They are growing up in a world where they don't know what is right and wrong because they're not being taught that by the public media nor by their parents. Their parents are not taking them to church. They don't know what it is to go to church. They don't know what it is to open the Bible. They don't know what it is except for what they see on TV and on their video games that they play incessantly. Pray for those children, because many of them might not ever hear the truth. Number 5, answer without arguing. Oh, the world wants to argue because that's what it likes to do. That's one of the reasons they throw barbs at us. They're trying to get us caught off guard so we'll spout off and give them an excuse to rant and rave. Proverbs chapter 17 and verse 1. Proverbs 17 and verse 1. Better is a dry morsel and quietness therewith than a house full of sacrifices with strife. You know, nobody likes to hear arguing all the time. Nobody wants to argue all the time. And somebody who does want to argue all the time, there's a problem. There's a problem with their own self-image. There's a problem with their ability to understand what it is to be kind and considerate of others. There's a real problem there. You see, our love will be known by how we talk. How is our speech supposed to be flavored? It's flavored with the Word of God. We speak as oracles of God. We speak. Every time the Lord spoke, did he speak mildly and meekly? No, he was pretty strong. But he never argued, did he? He always gave an answer. And always took what was given to him and turned it right around and gave it back with a little tidbit of thought to go along with it. We need to learn how to talk to one another and speak to the lost and speak to those that are causing problems in the world in such a way that we don't create an argument. An argument is not going to win us anything. Number 6, we need to share without pretending. Share the gospel. Share the truth without pretending to be what we aren't. Let's don't be hypocritical. If we're children of God, let us live as such. Let us speak as such. Let us act as such. And let us teach in love the truth. Look in Ephesians 4 and verse 15. Ephesians 4:15 says, "But speaking the truth in love, may grow up into him in all things, which is the head, even Christ." Speaking the truth. If I'm telling somebody, I'm not just telling them, I am living it. I'm a living example to them of what I'm trying to tell them to be. Don't pretend to be something you're not. The world is not fooled. The world is full of great pretenders. They're full of and being led by the greatest deceiver of all, Satan himself. So don't think you're going to outsmart the world. If you pretend to be something you're not, the world will see it and will bring reproach upon the church. Let us be indeed the children of God. Let us live and conduct ourselves as the children of God. Number 7, we need to learn to enjoy this life and enjoy its many blessings without complaint. Without complaint. Philippians 2:14. "Do all things without murmurings and disputings." Every day is a blessing. Every opportunity to see one another, to talk to one another. Every time you get up in the morning and you speak to your loved ones, it's an opportunity to be grateful. And we should think that way. Today may be the last day you get to say hello or I love you to someone special to you. Maybe the last day you get to say something to your brother or sister in Christ. It might be the last day you get to speak to your neighbor. What are you going to say to them? How are you going to conduct yourself to them? We need to learn to enjoy this life and enjoy sharing God's grace and God's love with one another. Life is special. It's a gift from God. It's a gift that cannot be equaled in any way. Let us live life in such a way that we count ourselves worthy of the sacrifice God made for us. Number 8, trust without wavering. We need to trust each other, but we also need to trust God. Look in 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 7. 1 Corinthians 13 and verse 7 says, "Beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things." What are we talking about? We're talking about love. It bears all things. How many times have you asked your neighbor to come to church? How many times have you talked to your relatives about going to church and having a Bible study and you've been turned down, you've been mocked, whatever the circumstance? You're enduring, aren't you? You are trusting that eventually they will turn. You're not doubting your prayers. You're not doubting what God has done for you. In Hebrews chapter 10, verse 23, it says, "Let us hold fast the profession of our faith without wavering." You see, when I begin to waver, when I begin to doubt, then I am not believing that which I am trying to profess to others. I must be the model for what I know that the Lord wants them to be. And my faith, my trust, my hope is part of that. I can demonstrate my love for God, my love for my brethren, my love for the lost by teaching, preaching, living, and trusting without doubt. Because that's what God asks us to do. Number 9, we need to forgive without punishing. Oh, this is a hard one for many people to deal with. We can say, "Oh, I'll forgive, but I'm not going to forget." Or "I'll forgive him, but I want to see this happen to them. I want to make sure they don't do that again." You know, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. God will recompense. God will take care of the punishment phase and do so far better than we could ever dream of doing it. Look in Colossians 3:13. Colossians 3:13. It says, "Forbearing one another." That's basically, you might as well say, that's putting up with each other. Okay? And forgiving one another. "If any man have a quarrel against any, even as Christ forgave you, so also do you." That's not That's not beating around the bush. That's coming right out and telling you what you need to do. Put up with each other. Endure one another. We all have our talents. We all have our gifts. We all have our strengths and our weaknesses. But most of all, we all make mistakes. Some of us are weaker in one way and stronger in others. That's why together we become strong. That's why we are to confess our faults one to another. Where I might be weak, Robert might be strong. And he can help me where I'm weak, and then I can help him where he's weak. Together we go to heaven. We help each other. That's the purpose. That's forbearing one another. We need to learn to do that, because that's part of showing our love for each other. Number 10, promise without forgetting. You know, it's easy to make a statement, oh, I'll do such and such, and we'll go on, and we seem to forget that we made that promise. We seem to forget that we said that we do such and such. It's easy to forget because we get wrapped up in this world and we lose sight of some of the things that we've said we would do. Look at Proverbs chapter 13, verse 12. Proverbs chapter 13 and verse 12 says, hope deferred maketh the heart sick. In other words, I'm looking for something to happen, and I'm anxious. I want it to happen, and I'm waiting for it to happen. But when the desire cometh, it is a tree of life. When that hope is finally made real, I'm so happy. Isn't that the way sometimes our children are when we tell them we're going to do something? We can't forget that we promised something. What about those that are lost in the world? Oh, I'll teach you that Bible study. I'm going to come and get you. We're going to go to church. We never show up because we figure they probably wouldn't go anyway. I don't know how many times I've knocked on doors and somebody's come to the door and said, where have you been? I've been waiting for you to knock on my door. And they wanted to have a Bible study. It wasn't me that they were waiting for. It was waiting for someone to come teach them the truth because they've been told that someone would show up. Well, I happen to be that one. We should always keep our word, no matter what it is, even to our loved ones, to our husbands, to our wives. Speak in love, in kindness, gentleness. The world is watching how we treat one another, and how we treat one another is exactly how we will wind up treating them. Be firm, be strong, be sound in the faith, be unwavering in the truth, but gentle in our approach, gentle in our words, and kind in our approach. Let us always demonstrate our love for God by our love to each other. If you're here this evening and you need to put your Lord on the baptism, now's your opportunity. If you are a child of God, but you've stumbled, you've fallen, you've made mistakes, now's your opportunity to make it right. Whatever need you have in Christ, once you come, while together we stand and invite you in song.